everybody. I'm Nafiul, and it's really great to be here in Taiwan. I think it's a privilege to be among such amazing talent. So today I'm going to be talking about something that's not as flashy as huge data analysis or something that's out of this world extraordinary. I'm going to be talking about a very simple tool that I think a lot of people can take advantage of. So we're going to be talking about static blogs with Pelican. So before we get into the static part or the Pelican part, let's talk about, why should we blog in the first place? I mean, what is the point? What is the benefit for us as engineers, as programmers, to blog, right? And so the first part is, what is in it for me? How do I benefit from writing a blog? So from my own perspective, when I started writing a blog, I had to actually take the time to illustrate my points. I had to talk and really understand something thoroughly before I could start writing about it or blogging about it. And what that did for me is it really fine-tuned my understanding of a lot of the things that I thought I understood, but I actually didn't. So in many cases, for example, if you're going to be talking about the global interpreter log or the GIL in Python, you need to understand how threads work. You need to understand what kinds of threads you're creating when you use the thread module in Python, and a lot of other things. So when you're trying to write something and that's going to be public and accessible to everybody, you need to know what you're talking about, and you need to have a very good way to illustrate that point. And secondly is you get feedback. You get feedback from all kinds of people from all over the world. And some of that feedback is going to be very positive. Some people are going to say that, this is the best post I've ever read in my life. Thank you for writing it. This is awesome, right? And, that makes you feel really good inside. But at the same time, and that gives you an idea of what you're doing right. Okay, so I'm doing this right. Okay, I'm explaining this part right. But at the same time, you're going to get people who are going to tell you, well, you're not right about this part in Python. You're not right about how you talk about the threads in Python. You've made a mistake on how GIL contention works or some topic that you've discussed. So in simple terms, it gives you blogging really puts your thoughts out there for everybody to check and decipher and really question you on what you believe in or what you're trying to imply. But also, you get a lot of feedback about the assumptions that you've made. So for example, if you provide a solution to a particular problem, but there are other elegant, maybe more elegant ways of solving that problem, many people will direct you to that as well. So you get a very holistic idea of what you're dealing with and what you're talking about. So that's in it for you, but what is in it for others, right? So a lot of the times the way I've learned Python, I've read a lot of blog posts. So one person's blog that I really read is a guy called Jake Vanderplas, right? And he writes a blog called Pythonic Perambulations. And one post that he wrote is why Python is slow, looking under the hood, right? And what that does is it gives you a bird's eye perspective of why Python is slow. It goes into, how Python objects are declared in C, and it really gives you a holistic idea of, why it takes so long to do the same thing in Python that is done much faster in C. Another one is understanding Python metaclasses. I know Python metaclasses are talked about a lot. There's always somebody who's writing a post or a book or something about it. But there's a guy called Yono, and he wrote a post called Understanding Python Metaclasses, and he actually showed through a lot of diagrams how the attributes work in Python and how you get access to them. So magic methods and stuff like that, and how it all works. So not only is it beneficial for you, but a lot of people can learn a lot of things from what you've written. But there are downsides, right? You often have trolls coming around, and they're going to say some mean things, and to a lot of people it really hurts them, and they never blog again. My perspective on that, and because I've had trolls on my blog, my perspective on that is there is more good in having an open comment section and having people tell you about what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you didn't consider. So if you weigh the benefits against the downsides, I think there are more benefits to having an open comment section where people give you feedback, and trolls are just a very small part of that. So let's get into the meat of things. So what does the static mean in a static blog, right? So let's consider a normal blog, right? You have your browser. It sends a request to the server, right? And says, say, ABC/123. It wants the author ABC with post number 123. And so the server goes to the database and says, well, I need this post, right? And the database says, okay, let me look for it, right? And if it finds it, it sends it back to the server and says, okay, great, I found it. And then the server gets back to the browser and says, look, here's your post. That's in a nutshell how it works. But if you think about it, the problem with this is you have to maintain a database, right? And secondly, if you consider, if you want your post to be really popular, right, where you're getting a lot of page views, this is going to become expensive. So a lot of the times, I don't know if any of you read Hacker News or Reddit, right? A lot of the times you're going to click on a post and it's going to give you a 500 error. Simply because it's just not there anymore. There's just been too many requests. So when I was actually looking into static blogs, I needed something. I was kind of broke. I didn't really have all that money to have a high performance server or something like that. So I needed something cheap and accessible for me. So then I found static blogs. So how do static blogs work, right? So you have a browser. It sends a request to the server, and you just for a post, and you just get the post. There is no there is no communication with the database. It just happens. And at this point in time, you might be suspicious. So how does the magic work, right? So it comes down to generation, right? So if you take a look at a blog post, right, it isn't generating any specific user content. So for example, if you use your Facebook page, you have your own avatar, you have your own message feed and all that stuff. But for a blog, it's the same article that everybody else reads. So the content is not specific to the user. So you generate, so what a static blog does is it basically generates all possible routes for your blog, and it saves all possible routes to files. So before we had abc/123, now it'll just be abc/123.html. So this is how my blog looks like. So so if you can see, like, these are the folders, and these are the slashes after the places, and these are the actual posts, and these are the indexed versions of the page. So a big question is, why Pelican, right? I mean, there are plenty of static blogs out there, and I think I think I have some advantage here because you're all Python programmers, and so yeah. So one of the main reasons is it's completely written in Python, and it's very easy to build plugins for Pelican, and I will show you how to build those. Honestly, it's very simple. It's very easy, and you can leverage the full power of Python. So you can make tools using Click. Anybody here not familiar with Click? Anybody here not familiar with Click? It's okay. So Click is a library written by a guy called Armin Ronicher. He's the same guy who wrote Flask. And what it does, it allows you to build very powerful, very dynamic command line applications. So, and also you have things like Fabric and Matplotlib. So you can really leverage the full power of Python in if you use Pelican. The second thing is themes. So there are so many themes for Pelican that it's easy to get lost. And last time I checked, there were over 90 themes, and you can also create your own. So there are basic themes, there are multiple, there are themes from multiple authors. I saw one theme that was specifically designed for mathematicians, right? That had MathJack support and everything. And you also have responsive themes that work across devices. So, you have a wide variety of choices there. And last but not least, you have plugins. So right now there are, over 100 plugins in the repository. So you have lots of types of plugins. So you have, utilities, CSS, JS minifiers. If you're using Markdown, you can actually create table of contents and add footnotes and things like that, all through plugins. You also have support for different file extensions, so IPython Notebook, Markdown, things like that. So you have lots of choices. Speaking about that, so you have many formats that it supports. So Markdown, ASCII doc, restructured text. Restructured text is the default. You have to install the Markdown package in Python if you want to use Markdown. And also IPython Notebook. I know there are a lot of data scientists out there. So what you can do is you can copy and paste your, say, worksheet or whatever, and you just paste it inside your content folder, and that'll be a blog post. So it's really, really cool. And it's very, very flexible. And of course, if none of these formats are to your liking, you can make your own, and you can sub-process that, and you can actually, like I said, leverage the power of Python to build your own readers. So let's talk about a quick start. So if you pip install Pelican, what happens is you get a new command called Pelican Quick Start, right? And what this does for you is it generates all the scaffolding, or should I say, it generates your project for you. So if you invoke Pelican Quick Start from the command line after you've installed Pelican, it'll ask you a couple of questions like where do you want to create the site, what will be the title of this site, who is the author of this site, and all that stuff. So it's going to ask you a bunch of questions, and after you're done with that, it's actually going to generate a couple of files and folders for you. So let's take a look at some of the files here. So you have a make file here, right? So you can do make server, and that will actually host your stuff onto the server. You have a fab file here, so you can invoke fab and then the function name inside the fab file. How many of you guys are familiar with Fabric? Anybody familiar with Fabric? So Fabric is for this use case is a bit of a command line launcher, so you can actually declare functions inside of Fabric. It's a lot more complicated than that, and you can do a lot more than that. But you can actually declare functions inside of Fabric, and you can invoke them from the command line, and I'll show you how that's done. And you have two files generated. One is pelicanconf, and okay. So you have pelicanconf and you have publishconf, right? So pelicanconf contains all the configuration when you're trying to work on the site inside on your workstation, right, or on your own computer. And publishconf has the special configuration when you want to publish. So, for example, one example is the site URL. You have a different site URL when you're actually going to publish on the site. So, for example, your website name. So this is an example of a first post. So what we do is we create a post inside the content folder. We can name it whatever we want, right? In this case, we're just going to have a hello world post. So before, as you can see, there's the content folder and the output folder, right? And so inside the content folder is where all your posts and pages are. And when you run Pelican on it, when you run the functions on it, you will get you will get all the output inside the output folder. So all your generated HTML is going to be there. So some fields are mandatory. So you have a date, a slug. A slug is basically the path to your post. So, and here we just write some stuff. So we set a date, we set a category, we have tags, we put a slug, we put the author name. You don't actually have to put in the author name, but I just do it for good practice. And you have a summary. And this is restructured text. So this is how you put a code block inside restructured text, and this is just metadata. So after that, you can just hit develop server.sh and you can start, and that will start a develop server for you. And you can start using develop server start, and you can stop it using develop server stop. You can also use the make file. So you can use make dev server, make stop server. You can also use the fabric file. You can use pretty much anything that you like. And here, this is what it looks like. So you have on localhost port 8000, your path is hello world.html. It's under the category of programming, right? You have your entire post here. It's written by Charles McChuckster. Inside programming, and it has a tag of Python. Okay. So how does all of this work, right? So what happens is you have all these restructured text files, and you have all these articles and pages, and what they get transformed into is something called a content object. Now, a content object is basically basically a dictionary that has the metadata of that post. So who wrote that post, when was it, when is the date, what is the slug, as well as the rendered HTML. So this happens after Pelican actually processes the HTML and gives it to you. So content objects have HTML in them as well as some metadata. Throughout the generation process, what happens is Pelican sends out signals to say that, okay, I'm done with reading the files, now I'm writing the HTML. And signals is basically how plugins work inside of Pelican. And eventually, these content objects are rendered using templates. So when we say themes, right, what we're basically talking about is a bunch of Jinja templates. So has anybody ever used a templating engine here? Yeah, so has anybody used PHP here? So PHP is a templating engine. If you take a look, this is an example of a Jinja template. Right, so I'm inheriting from base.html, and inside I have the article content object, and here this article.title is the metadata, article.date, I'm just simply formatting that date, right? And here's the article.content, that is where all the magic happens, right? And as you can see here, we're trying to create a link to the category, so span with a href, you have the site URL, you have article.category.url, and then article.category. And so all inside a URL. And here you have all the tags for that particular post. So this is an example of a template, and I will show you a couple of the templates that I use for my own blog. So let's talk about Pelican Conf. So Pelican Conf is where all your information is. So for example, here you have the author, you have your site name, and you have your site URL. You'll notice that the site URL is an empty string, and that's because when we're working on the server, we don't actually need to provide the full URL that you're actually going to be publishing to. And so we have path. Path pretty much designates where your RST or MD or IPython notebooks are that are to be rendered. And time zone, default lang, and all this stuff. So usually feed generation is disabled when you're just developing yourself. But in the publish conf, right, what we do is we import everything from Pelican Conf. We change the site URL. We get rid of relative URLs, and we actually have atom feeds that are generated. And also we delete output directory, so once it's done processing and once everything has been published, we're going to get rid of the output so that there are no stray files anywhere. And last but not least, we say we're going to use some plugins. And so when I'm developing, I don't actually use this plugin. So this plugin is called Minify. What it does is it minifies my CSS and HTML for me so that my page sizes are smaller. And so I don't need to use that when I'm actually developing on on my own computer, because this would actually add to the time it takes to build my entire site. So that's why when I'm publishing, that's when I minify. So I'm just going to quickly show you my workflow. So here I'm just enabling my virtual EMV, and what I'm going to be doing is just opening up PyCharm. So as you can see, I have, so this is my content folder. So inside my content folder, I have all my posts, right? And what I'm going to be doing now is basically creating a new one. So I'm going to be creating a new entry. So PyCon APAC 2015, right? And that actually creates a new file for me here based on a template, right? So I'm going to put this in the category of programming, and I'm going to say Python, PyCon APAC, and I'm going to say what I thought about PyCon APAC 2015, right? I'm going to say this conference was totally awesome, right? And so what I can do right now is I can open up the live server, fab live build, and what I can do is take a look at my drafts. So localhost port 8000, say drafts, and should be working. I think it's because of the internet. I think I'm using a CDN somewhere. Ah, there we go. Great. Never do live code. So drafts, let's get in there. Okay, yes, it's working. So PyCon APAC, and I thought it was awesome, right? So I'm going to just change here. The people here are super nice, right? And I'm going to save that. And that actually gets changed real time. I don't even have to refresh the server. So let's just get rid of the draft there, right? And let's just stop the server. And let's get rid of the footnotes. Of course, I will be changing this post. But I can actually do something like fab GitHub, right? And what's going to be happening is it's going to push to my GitHub repository, which is gamesbrainiac.github.io. And once it's done pushing, please don't fail on me. Oh yes, it worked. So after it's done pushing, I can go nafiullist.me, and voila, you have the post, right? So it's actually very easy. So it was just a couple of steps. I created the entry, I wrote some stuff, and then I just did GitHub, and it's online. Right, so a lot of people, what they do is that they tend to think that, oh my God, this is static blogs. It's gonna be creepy and scary. I don't know what to do. So much stuff, and it's not. So the way I've customized it is actually very customized. I have live reload and stuff like that. You don't have to do any of that. You can just post when you want to. You can add whatever you want to. You can make it as complex as you want to make it, or you can make it as simple as you want to make it. You can make your own theme, or you can use somebody else's theme, or you can just use the default theme that a lot of people do. So what are some other things that I want to talk to you about? Oh yes. So when I was talking to you about themes, so my theme, this is my own theme, right? So let's take a look at the index page. So in the index page, what I'm doing is I'm inheriting from base.html. And if we take a look at base.html, it's a really ugly template. So here I have all my CSS and HTML all in one. So this is where it's at. And what I'm doing inside of index is basically I'm inheriting from that. So in other words, extending from that. So, and I'm overriding the block content. And what I'm doing is I'm looping through all the articles inside of articles_page.objectList, right? And what I'm doing is I'm doing article summary. So article summary is another template inside of my theme, which actually renders the summary for each and every post that I have. So we can actually take a look at, see the article page, and inside the article page I have article.title, article.strftime. So the code that I showed you for the Ninja template, this is the same thing. So this is really all it takes. And if we're talking about discuss comments, I can pretty much include that as another template over here, and most of this stuff I just copied off of the discuss website. So all I changed really is the site name. That's it. So to be honest, I customize this stuff. Most themes are just going to give you a variable inside, say, Pelican conf, and that says discuss site name, and what's going to, so it's just going to do discuss site name or discuss short name, and it's already going to render that for you. So most themes will do that for you. I'm just showing you the internal guts of how things work. That's really it. Also, I have Google Analytics, and most themes will also give you Google Analytics, and this is pretty good. So if you post your a new post on Reddit or Hacker News, you can actually see the post count going up and down, people coming to your website. So it's really cool. So back to the presentation. Great, my live code didn't totally mess up. So some of the choices that I've made, I've used restructured text, and I've used restructured text because it gives you a lot of things for free. So you can generate your table of contents. It has footnotes built in. You don't have to install any plugins or anything. So it gives me a lot of flexibility over there, and I can really extend restructured text in however way I like. But for most people, they don't need all that functionality. So if you just want a simple blog where you can embed Python, some Python code, you can use Markdown. Markdown has support for syntax highlighting and everything. So you don't really need all this fancy restructured text. So another thing that I use is live reload. So live reload, what it does, you can actually install this package via pip install live reload. And the cool thing that it does is like you can actually change your file, and it will be directly reflected in your browser as long as you have the plugin installed without actually having to refresh the page. So you can actually, it's like a WYSIWYG editor. You can actually see the whole thing happening in real time. And last but not least, I use GitHub Pages to host my content. And what I basically do is redirect my DNS to gamesbrainia.github.io. So if we go here, so gamesbrainia.github.io will lead me to nafiulas.me. So all I had to do for that is basically put in a CNAME file, and that was pretty much it. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that. So if you'd like to host your blog on GitHub, come talk to me, and we can talk about it. Or if you don't want to talk to me, so there is an entire documentation on how to publish to GitHub. I promise it's just like maybe 2 sections. It's really short and sweet. So it's very simple. So for some reason, if you guys don't like me or something, you can just check that out. And it's really simple. So all of this stuff is automated for you. You don't have to really build things from scratch. I know some of you really want to, but most of you don't have to do any of that. You can use other themes. You can use plugins, whatever you want. You can use the stuff that's already provided with Pelican. There's already quick starts and everything. So it's not hard, and it's not only cheap. It's free. So, you can have a free hackable blog that can stand up to the immense number of page requests from Hacker News or Reddit or anywhere if your content gets popular, and you don't have to worry about it, right? So it's a very simple piece of technology, but it's also a very powerful piece of technology, and I really think people should use it. Okay, so making plugins, right? I bet some of you are itching to make a plugin and add your own functionality. So this entire thing that you see here, which is mostly comments, by the way, is a plugin. That's all it takes. So here, what I'm doing is I'm creating, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to embed keyboard buttons inside of my post, right? So all I do is all it's doing is I'm taking an instance. So I'm taking a content instance, and what I'm doing is if the content of the instance is not none, basically if I actually have stuff in there, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the content, I'm going to replace this syntax with this HTML, right? And I've actually embedded the CSS inside my main base.html file. And what I do is just I return the instance. I just change the underscore content into the new content, and I just return the instance. Everybody with me on that? I mean, it's just you take the instance, you take a look at the content, you do regex to replace your syntax with HTML, and then you just return the instance. It's as simple as that. And all you have to do is now register this plugin. Like, you got to tell Pelican that, look, I want you to use my plugin. I've worked really hard on it, and I want you to use it. So what we say is signals. So remember when I said that Pelican uses signals to say that, okay, I'm done with this part, and now I'm doing this part. So what you're doing is signals.object content object init. What that means is, okay, I'm done with processing the content object, which means I've rendered the HTML and I have all the metadata. And you say connect keys. And what that does is basically it connects your plugin to the entire process, and boom, your plugin works. Right? That's all there is to it. Making themes, I know some of you will want to make themes, right? Because, well, it's fun, right? So Pelican already has a scaffold for you, right? And you can get this off of this URL. And it will tell you. So here you have the static files, you have your CSS and your images, and you have your template. So you have your archive, your peer to archive. You don't actually need that stuff. I don't have it anyways. So article, author, authors. If you have more than one author for your blog, you have categories and category. So the difference is, say, if you have more than one author, you have authors. So you have a page that lists all your authors, right? And each author gets rendered into the author.html. And same thing with categories. So you have a category, say, under programming or under or something else, or just miscellaneous, and you have all your categories listed here, and you have each category rendered into its own page using this template. Okay, and then you have index, page, tag, and tags. So it's a similar way of doing things. So that's all there is to Pelican. It isn't very complicated. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them. Thank you.
So any question?
Hi, nice talk. Thank you. So I just tried Pelican with the help of some people last week. But the parts I wanted to work on were not in Python, right? I had to choose a theme with a large font because I didn't like the very small or very artistic fonts. And so when I did that, it had I ended up, the color scheme for the code was weird because it was on a black background and it was very dark. Yeah. So I had to hack the CSS file. So I actually took tiny screenshots of the different letters, opened them up in Python, and read the NumPy RGB codes, converted to ASCII, and then searched the CSS for the instances of that ASCII code.
Dude, that's hardcore.
But I didn't know a better way to do it. Okay, and I certainly don't know how to make the font larger or smaller or choose a different. How do I find out how to change those things that are so easy in a word processor seem opaque?
So basically, I just use CSS to do that. So inside your static CSS, and say you have, inside my main.css, right? You can take a look. I've actually said, say, let's see, paragraph, right? The display has to be table, text align center, and you can actually change the font inside of your CSS here. So basically, when you render a theme, right, it's actually using a CSS file to do that. So what you do is you just have to take a look at what it is being rendered at. So for example, if it's a H1, all you have to do is change the CSS for the H1, and you can actually change the font size. Or if you want to change the actual font itself, make sure you include links to that font. So for example, if you want to use something like Consolus, many people do not have Consolus on their machine. So you have to make sure that you have that installed. So for example, I think I have something here. There we go. So here, here I have code bold, right? So this is not something that most people have installed on their system. Let's see. You see this font over here, right? This one, that's actually code bold. So if you're going to be including a font, make sure that you have all the sources and font family in there. And if you're going to be changing the sizes of your fonts or anything. So for example, see P with a class of topic title, right? You can actually do that inside your CSS. What you have to do is a little bit of hacking, so you have to see what it is being rendered as. Is it a H1? Is it a H2? Is it a div with a H1? Is it a H1 with the class of whatever, right? You just have to check that, just back hack it and then just change it inside of your CSS. So I hope that helps. And if you need help, I'll be out soon, so I'll help you out with that. All right. Any more questions? Yes. Ooh, there's a comment.
Yeah, well, to add to the CSS hacker guy, what you could do is like in Chrome, there's that debugger thing, and you can like click on the thing, and on the right side, you'll get like the CSS selector or whatever.
So yeah,
and then you could chase it that way, so you don't have to like screenshot an eyedropper or whatever. So I hope that helps.
So
yeah.
what he's doing is like you can actually go like this and say, okay, that's an A tag. Right?
Yeah,
it's an
exactly.
HTML, and you can also do this. So that's P with a class of first and last. So yeah, lots of tools out there that you can use.
Yeah. All right. So the question, I guess, is so how does this thing like scale? Because as you get more and more pages, you're kind of like rebuilding like the entire like site, right? The whole blog.
So I actually tried it. I actually tried creating like, I don't know, 100,000 fake posts.
All right.
And with normal C Python, it's kind of slow. It takes like, I don't know, 2.3 seconds on my machine, right? Maybe a little more than that because I took out some plugins. But with PyPy, it was like one second. So it's really fast that way. And the good thing is, so I use restructured text. So most of restructured text processing, I think it leverages a lot of static .so objects. So, it's actually pretty fast. I mean, 2 seconds to build 100,000, ain't so bad, right?
Yeah. Okay, so does it do any kind of like caching or, use timestamps or something like this to kind of minimize what each incremental build
Totally. So you see this cache? This cache stuff? Right.
Yep.
So it actually stores some of the information like metadata and things like that into a cache, and so if you rebuild it for the second time, it's going to use that cache and just make it faster.
Okay.
Also, I use Sass, so every single time I use, say, CSS or something like that, that's also cached. And I think there are plenty of caching options, or if there aren't, you can always. I mean, it's Python. You can hack it and make your own cache.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the talk. It's really clear. Very cool.
All right. Any more questions? Okay.
Okay, I got one.
Okay, awesome. Great.
Embarrassingly, kind of 2 or 3 years ago, I changed my blog section to Octoprice, supposedly that, because someone called XDai that in Taiwan is quite famous, and she proposed that idea. That is kind of similar style static blogging session.
Yeah.
The most kind of troublesome issues that the generating of the static website is quite slow. Let's say like I got the just around 500 blog posts, and it takes like a couple of seconds to generate the whole HTML file. So is that gonna has a similar issue in Pelican?
So Pelican building is really, really fast, in my honest opinion. Maybe I should have been a bit more thorough with the size of my post. So when I did the 100,000 post thing, I just kind of created like a basic hello world kind of post, and I just kind of bloated my content folder with it. So maybe a more thorough benchmark would be advisable. But in most cases, I don't think it's slow. And the thing is, if you change anything, so the way I've set it up, it's only going to build the stuff that's changed. So for example, if you want things to be fast, right, what Pelican is going to do is it's actually going to cache all the stuff that was previously. It's going to compare the metadata, and it's going to be like, okay, so this file and this file, this file changed, boom. So let me just show you. So fab live build, right? So let me just show you what my fabric file looks like. Let's see, fab file. So here I'm doing make clean, which just cleans out my output folder, and I do make HTML. And you see process 24 articles, 1 draft, and 1 page, right? And what happens in most cases is when you just make a small edit, it doesn't generate all those pages again, right? It just generates that 1 page that you have. So what I always do is I just clean out my output folder. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't do it. But if you have large posts, you don't need to clean out your output folder, and only the stuff that's changed will be changed. So if you want fast builds, that could be a possible way. All right. Thank you.
So I think we run out of time. So let's thank Nafiul again. And if you have further questions, just come to the front.
Yeah, I'm open.